Welcome to the We Are Resilient webinar, Curiosity, Choice, and Courage, the Power of Resilient Mindsets. My name is Meri McCoy-Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Dovetail Learning, and we are really happy to be here today to present We Are Resilient. The mission of Dovetail Learning is to strengthen resilience in adults and children, and our vision is a world of kind, connected human beings. All of our materials are open educational resources, which means you can download them and use them for free, adapt them for use in your community, as long as you give attribution, collaborate and share back, and share alike, which means anything you create with our materials, just use the same Creative Open Educational Resource license. A little bit about me before we get started. So I am a white woman, cisgendered, and I have 2 adult children, and my daughter recently got married, and I'm excited to have them in my life. I lived a lot of my life in different countries. We lived in India, we lived in China, lived in West Africa, working for nonprofits the entire time. My mission really is to help others and live their best life. I also care for my mother who has Alzheimer's, and we have 1 cat, Buster. Before we get too far into this, I just want to start by thanking you for being you. I know that you handle all the challenges that come up in your life, so many things. I know you spend a lot of time taking care of the people around you. And I just want to thank you for caring, because I know you are one of the people that's trying to make the world a more kind and just place. Our agenda today is to look at the resilience context so we can understand how these resilient mindsets can help us. And then we'll dive deeper into these powerful resilient mindsets of curiosity, choice, and courage. We'll end by just taking a quick look at the We Are Resilient approach. So the We Are Resilient approach is an approach of intentional well-being. So it helps us become the people that we really want to be in the world, and the resilient mindsets are part of the We Are Resilient approach. So let's look at resilience. What is it? Oh, before I get started any further, I want to say feel free to put questions in the Q&A or in the chat. I love to answer questions as we go along. Introduce yourself. Yes, it is recording, so it's a webinar, and so we share it out to anyone who can't be here. Anyway, so feel free to put anything you have in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll get to it either during the webinar or at the end. So thank you so much. So resilience, what is it? How do we define it? Very simply, resilience is the ability to adapt and respond to meet challenges effectively, and we know that our resilience will be higher or lower in different situations. So we're going along, doing whatever. Just yesterday, I was taking a long drive with my husband in the car back from Los Angeles from visiting my children, and he said something that triggered me. So I was feeling really good, and then suddenly I was not feeling so good. My resilience was weak, and I was all cranky. It just happens to us all the time. And then, I can practice my skills and I can get stronger again, and then I can feel weak resilience. It can happen many times in a few moments, or it can happen over a long period of time. We may feel up and down. We may feel really strong for months and then really weak resilience for more months. So just know that that's normal and part of human. And the other thing to know is our resilience can be strengthened through the practice of specific skills by being intentional, which is why we call this an intentional approach. We can strengthen our resilience and handle all those challenges that come up in our life more effectively, which helps us be the people we want to be. It helps us in our family and our groups and teams and our work, and it helps us collaborate with others. That's why we feel like it's so important. The other thing to know is resilience is an ordinary superpower. It does not come from rare and special qualities, but from the everyday magic of being human. We call our approach We Are Resilient because we want to acknowledge that we start off being resilient, we are resilient, and the goal is just maybe how can we be a little bit more resilient to handle things a little bit better, have those relationships be more authentic in the way that we want to be in life. So just take a 30 seconds, 15 seconds to think about this for a moment. When have you experienced weak resilience in your life? Maybe when you have experienced strong resilience. If you feel comfortable, just to note a couple of words in the chat about what that what that felt like, either weak resilience or strong resilience, just to so I can have a sense of what that is. As I told you, for me, I get weak resilience. One thing that causes me to have weak resilience, which is so odd but true, is IT problems. Some IT problem comes and I just get it all in a snit, and I know how to solve a lot of stuff, but it takes time that I don't want to take, and I feel like I shouldn't, and suddenly I have weak resilience. Honestly, I feel like I have strong resilience often in the harder problems, in problems when people are really ill or dying, when there's really significant problems happening in an organization or group that I belong toward, or when there's a big conflict. Somehow I'm able to rise to that occasion a lot of the time, but sometimes it's the small stuff that sets me off in a bigger way. So just an example for me, just wanted you to think about that weak and strong resilience, because by tapping into those feelings, it helps us understand the resilient mindsets that much more. So resilient mindsets, what are those resilient mindsets? They're mindsets that matter. The resilient mindsets that we talk about are the mindsets of curiosity, choice, and courage. And curiosity is, how am I being? What don't I know about a situation? Choice is, what empowering choice can I make? And the resilient mindset of courage involves thinking about, what kind of person do I want to be? So curiosity, we'll start with that one. That's really important as a foundational resilient mindset. Just thinking about what is really going on here. I have to say, I've always been a very curious person. I really love to learn about people. My children know that if they bring someone home, I'm just going to ask them so many questions. My daughter was embarrassed as a child that I would ask her friends so many questions, until she realized from them that they actually liked having an adult give them so much positive attention. But as a really curious person, I didn't always use it in the best way possible that can really support my resilience. And that is understanding being curious about myself and how I react to situations, as well as other people in that situation. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful gift, that gift would be curiosity." And I think it's so true, because if we can be curious about ourselves and others, it just lays the foundation for a stronger resilience. So what does resilience look like? First, we have to pause. And this can sometimes be the hardest thing. So driving down the freeway in the car with my husband, we start having a conversation, and he starts saying something and I feel triggered. And it's so easy just to go right in, like whatever the conversation is, instead of pausing. Okay, as if we can pause our judgments and move into noticing and wondering, then we can really open up curiosity. So whether it's in that kind of situation, whether it's like we're feeling, sort of something happens, or whether we see that in someone else. I walked by a car today and it was blocking the sidewalk, and I was so cranky. Why does that car have to block the sidewalk? And I thought, here I am, judgmental right off the bat. Pausing our judgments is key, and it's really hard. Most of us are so programmed, we're just programmed to be judgmental and to make all these decisions about the world. But if we can pause them for a moment, notice, oh, okay, so when I was with my husband, notice, oh, I'm feeling activated about this and wondering what is happening with me. I can be more curious about it. Or when I see this car blocking the freeway, noticing like, oh, okay, I'm making a big judgments about my neighbors here. Why am I judging? What can I do instead, right? So pausing, noticing, and wondering, being in a real state of curiosity and pausing our judgments and thinking about that, right? So part of this, as I said, curiosity has two components. We can go into ourselves, myself, how am I being, and also others, help me understand, or may I ask a clarifying question. So in that situation with my husband, like what was triggering me that I was feeling all this angst that has simple comments about a simple complaint? For me, it was bringing up some long-standing things that we have between us and how things are going on this specific situation. I was like, oh, okay, that's why I'm so triggered. I need to be able to be frank and honest about the long-standing issues and not just sort of dive into the other stuff. Or if I'm in a situation with someone else, Help me understand. May I ask a clarifying question instead of diving in with our judgments, like understanding what's going on underneath. I was talking to a friend and she was describing a toxic situation in the workplace. Believe me, all I wanted to do was tell her, you have to leave, stop being in this toxic situation. I still am learning, let's put it this way, that solving problems for others actually doesn't work very well. They don't tend to listen to us. But if we can be curious and ask curious questions, we can help them understand things and we can understand things at a deeper level. So I was able to say, why do you think you're staying in this situation? What's keeping you here when you know it feels so toxic, right? Then we're able to get at her deeper issues and what things are happening that makes it happen. May I ask a clarifying question, like when she's telling me a story? That helps us move into some real issues that are happening and not just sort of jump over and me tell her what I think she should do, which is just so not helpful. So how might being curious help me? That's I have to think about my own feelings and emotions. Why am I sad about this? Why am I angry about this? Why do I feel perplexed? My own actions and behaviors. Why did I, do this to that person, or why did I do that? And seeing others' feelings and actions in a different way. Like, oh, I'm just thinking about that person did that because of that, or maybe they did it because of that. Just being curious about it instead of judging, oh, I can't believe they did that. It can really help us see possibilities. Curiosity is being open to new possibilities. It opens us up to there may be another way of thinking about something. And by being open to new possibilities, that's what prepares us for all the rest of the work of resilience. It prepares us for being centered, for helping really connect with people, for collaborating. Because we don't have to do things the same old way that we did things, as we know that can often block us when we do things the same way that we used to. Any questions about curiosity, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. The next resilient mindset I want to talk about is the resilient mindset of choice. So once we are open to possibilities, then it's like, okay, I have a choice in this situation, right? Understanding I have a choice. So the greatest human discovery is that by changing the inner attitudes of our minds, we can change the outer aspects of our life. Once we think of things in one way, we can start making the changes that we need to. I have to say that one of the things that happened to me in the last week is I was talking to an old friend who we've had a long-standing disagreement, and I just say that she made a choice that was very hurtful for me like 20 years ago. I felt like she chose someone else over me in a very important situation, and I kind of held it against her. And I feel like every time we're together, she's a little chilly to me. And it's just bothering me. And I sort of was pulling back. And I'm like, oh, I really hate the fact that she's really chilly to me. And she did that too. And I'm just kind of piling up resentments, right? Then I was curious, this weekend when I was talking to her. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if my kind of holding this grudge that I haven't told people about, maybe that is why she's feeling that, and maybe that's why she's chilly to me. In other words, maybe it's what's happening in my mind that's causing the problem in the relationship and not a problem in hers. That's how curiosity can open us up, and then it's the inner attitude of my mind that's going to change the outer aspect of my life. Understanding I have a choice that I can change how I relate to her and therefore change our relationship. That's what choice is about. So how do we do this choice? First, we have to see the possibilities that we were just talking about. Oh, maybe I have a problem. Maybe it's my fault, or, I have a part in this. Maybe not the whole thing, but I have a part in it. Then we can assess, like, what can I do? How can I look at the situation differently? What if I continue on the same way, we'll probably have the same relationship. That's the assessing. Or if I start having a different perspective about what happened 20 years ago, maybe it'll open up our relationship. And then we have the choice, so we can decide, oh, I think I'm going to go on that track because I don't want to keep this chilly relationship anymore. That would be a more empowering choice. When we talk about my friend who's in a toxic workplace, right, what could be an empowering choice for her, right? She was talking about one empowering choice is to view what's happening in her workplace more positively, like this is not really out to get her, it just feels that way, whatever. Or maybe another empowering choice is to look outside of her workplace to what their options are for changing jobs. Both of them are valuable. She has to assess which one, seeing all the possibilities, assess which one, what kind of impact it can have, and then make some decisions about what that might feel like for her. But focusing on like, what empowering choice do I have? Sometimes we feel like we're in situations like, I don't have a choice. I have to do this. I don't have any choice, but I have to stay in this job. I don't have any choice. This person acted this way. I'm going to cut them off. The reality is we always have a choice. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances, to choose one's own way. This statement is from Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning, which he wrote after being imprisoned in the concentration camps in World War II. If there's one place that feels like you don't have any choice, it's being in those concentration camps. And if Viktor Frankl can find a way and say, wow, I can have an attitude about this very real prison that I'm in, we all can have and change our attitude or think about our attitude as extremely powerful. We have a choice and it's extremely powerful in all these situations, right? One of the things to recognize that the impact of the stress is different than the stressor. Something happens. My husband makes a comment. My friend has a toxic workplace and there's somebody who makes a comment on that. Somebody does something to us. There's a space in between in which we can make a choice before the impact of the stress happens. So my husband has a comment. I can make the choice. Am I going to be kind to him? Am I going to explain how it feels to me? Am I going to pretend it doesn't happen? Am I going to attack him? All sorts of choices. And the impact of the stress is going to be really different depending on what choice I make. And taking that space in between to make that choice, sometimes that's the hardest part. It's back to the pausing and being curious, okay? That can give us space. We can also have that impact like, okay, when my friend in the workplace, the toxic workplace, she has a space in between when she's told to do something that she feels goes against her values. She can pause. What's the impact if I make this choice? What's the impact if I make that choice? And understanding that we make the choice in that space. It's not the stress that's causing the problem. Again, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What we choose makes all the difference for our life. Like I said, sometimes we feel like we don't have choice. And the truth is, the more trauma that we've had, or if we've had adverse childhood experiences, sometimes we feel sort of cowed down by life, like we don't have any choice. And that's part of our history. Working through some of that stuff can make us feel like, oh, can help us be curious, open up new possibilities. People who've come from situations where they've had a lot of things going their way, it feels easier to make those choices. We're more apt to like, oh, I have practiced making choices and having agency for my life. So it's just good to recognize that that's an added layer of complication when we're talking about choice, is that when life beats us down, it's harder to see choices. And sometimes it just takes more work and an effort on our part to get to that place. So just to, think about it, you can put it in the chat if you feel like it. How might consciously choosing help you more? In what situations would it help you to remember you have a choice? I know for myself, if I'm in the middle of an argument with my husband, if I can remember I have the choice to be grateful for him and our life together in the middle of that argument, I can change the way I talk to him. I might still disagree, but it can change the way I talk and help me feel calmer in that situation. I know with my long friend, knowing that I consciously can change my attitude to this thing that happened 20 years ago, and that will change our relationship, that could help us more. It's just an examples for being really conscious about our mindset. The last resilient mindset is courage. And courage is the mindset that helps us lean into our values. None of this work matters if we're not paying attention to our values. Our values are what guide us and help us understand what's important for us and those around us, what we really want to fight for ourselves, for our lives, for our families, for our groups, our workplace, marginalized people, all the people that we feel are important and need to be lifted up. As Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. When we lean into our courage, and our courage really starts in our hearts, understanding that our hearts are wisdom, we have the inner wisdom, and we all have it. We all have those voices that sometimes we just don't pay attention to, that help guide us and help us understand this is what's important, and I'm going to do that because that is my value. When we're practicing the resilient mindset of courage, first, sometimes it's important to feel, what is my heart telling me? That can be in our body. Maybe my friend in the toxic workplace comes in and her shoulders are all tight and her stomach is tight and she kind of feels sick when she's there. Her heart is telling her that this is not a good place for her and is not healthy. When I was with my long friend, my heart was telling me, oh, I think I have a part here and maybe I need to pay attention. Then it's listening to my inner wisdom. Like, oh, my inner wisdom was saying, wow, people can tell how you feel, even what you feel inside, even if you never say it and you think you're putting on a happy face. We really radiate who we are to other people. So what's happening inside of us matters. Listening to that inner wisdom. And then acting in ways that honor our values and our boundaries. So if someone is saying something that is not okay, saying that it's not okay. We don't have to be hurtful. We don't have to be angry. We can just say that it's not okay. And there's many situations that come up in life, like I'm in a job maybe that's paying me a lot of money and I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm burnt out. Maybe my values is that I can't serve the world, even in a job that's supposedly great, if I'm being burnt out about it. Like understanding I have values, I have boundaries, and they're important. Understanding what kind of person do I want to be and spending the time feeling that in our body and listening to our inner wisdom. It's very difficult to do the work of We Are Resilient, to become stronger and resilient, if we ignore our values, if we don't have courage for listening to them. And that's the reason this is part of the foundation for strengthening our resilience. Just to know that your way of being in the world matters. So your curiosity about yourself, about how you're acting and why you're acting, matters. Your curiosity about other people, understanding, oh, I'm going to give that person a break. I'm not going to presume that they were so angry at me when they did X, Y, and Z. Maybe they were just angry at the world. Maybe they had a bad day. I'm going to be curious about what else could have happened to them today, or that's the reason they spoke to me that way. And understanding we have choice. We can choose to be kind. We can choose to be curious. We can choose to use a resilient mindset, or we can choose to continue to go along the way we've been going and maybe not be the authentic person that we want to be. And then courage, listening to our values, saying, okay, I really want to have a stronger marriage, for example. So I'm going to do this work because I want my marriage to be better. Or I want to be closer to my children. I'm feeling like a lot of disconnect with them. And so I'm going to be curious about what's happening with me and with them. So I'd stop screaming at them, or I stop not listening to them, or I stop judging them. I have a choice in these matters. I have courage. And all of these things in our relationships and our work, and they all matter. Just a little context, again, back to the We Are Resilient approach as a whole, this approach for intentional well-being. So We Are Resilient helps us in our head, helps us think about things in a new way, it gives us a conceptual framework. It helps us tap into how we really feel and help us understand how much power our emotions have, how they can guide us when we pay attention to them, and how valuable they are. They're a wonderful value in our life. They also help us, gives us skills, and We Are Resilient can help us act in ways that are more aligned with who we want to be. And that's the approach as a whole. Just a little silly little video about that. So that video is really just about giving us the sense that this is a big package with a lot in it, the We Are Resilient approach. So we try to put it in bite-sized pieces in these different webinars. So we talked today about the mindsets, curiosity, choice, and courage that really lay the foundation for helping us understand the rest of it. They guide us in using our patterns and skills. And other places on our websites and our webinars and our books, we talk about our protective patterns. That's how we react to the world, whether we're attacking or defensive or avoiding. How do we react to the world, how it can help us, and sometimes it can limit us. We also talk about our cultural patterns. Our cultural patterns, that's how we view the world. They also can help us and they also can limit us. Really important to understand our patterns. As I said, our mindsets help us understand those patterns better when we're curiosity, when we are curious about them, when we have choice, we understand we can choose whether to use them or not, and when we have courage, when we want to make it more aligned with our values. We also have our centering skills. Our centering skills gives us personal resilience. Our connecting skills give us relational resilience, and our collaborating skills give us group resilience. And we have 16 skills that are all evidence-based in this approach that we talk about that can help us with connecting with others, can help us center ourselves, and help us collaborate with others better. They are how we create the world we want. We have lots of resources I mentioned, all open educational resources on our website. We have lots of books, practical skills for resilience. We have them for families, for teachers, for healthcare workers. If you're none of those things feel good, I would probably get the family one just to give you a sense of what the approach is. You can download it for free or you can buy the book. And physical books do help us understand things. I am finding that their physical reminders are really helpful. We also have lots of videos. We have like 60 videos for learning on our YouTube channel and a lot of digital downloads. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, again, you can put them in the chat. You can put them in the Q&A if you have anything you want to ask, or feel free to send me information at mary@dovetaillearning.org. I will be sending the recording out and a follow-up to all of you, and I want to thank you for attending. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Okay.